This episode of the EV Resource Podcast is brought to you by Titan Auto and Tire. Titan has some of the very few independent auto repair shops in Central Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs and hybrids. And from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. For more information and to schedule an appointment for your vehicle, go to TitanAutoTire.com. Coming up this week, Kia has unveiled the EV9 electric SUV. Volkswagen debuts the ID.2 Concept. Mississippi has banned direct sales of electric vehicles, and more. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to episode 145 of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and interviews with industry experts. I apologize if my voice sounds a little bit different this week. I am getting over a bug that had me down for a couple of days, and I am still not back to 100% yet. But I'm not going to let that get in the way because there's so much to talk about this week. I do want to announce a slight change to the format of the show. Last episode, I had put a number of EV headlines at the front of the news section in a rapid fire style to update you on some of the things you might have missed before getting to the bulk of the EV news. And apparently that went over really well, so I am going to be including that going forward. But for this week, before I do, I want to make a quick correction to some of the information I shared in last episode. I incorrectly reported to you that VinFast was delaying U.S. deliveries until 2025, but that's not true. They are delaying U.S. production. Vehicles are still being produced in Vietnam and shipped over here for deliveries. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I definitely messed that one up. All right, then, let's get to it. Starting off with a headline from Porsche. The company recently talked about its Premium Platform Electric, or PPE platform. And while they're not giving away too many details yet, it is noteworthy that the PPE-based vehicles will have a maximum power output of 603 horsepower and 737 pound-feet of torque, feature an 800-volt architecture, and advanced battery management. The first vehicle to be built on the PPE platform will be the upcoming Macan SUV. Cody Detweiler from the Whistling Diesel YouTube channel has taken the Model 3 to a new limit. In a recent video, he and his team are seen putting the Model 3 through a series of staged, quote, durability tests that culminate with fitting 10-foot tall wagon wheels to the car and using an excavator to invert it, turning the Model 3 completely upside down, and yes, it still drives. If you haven't seen this video yet, I'll put the link in the show notes. It's 13 minutes long, but it's definitely entertaining, to say the least. The IIHS has a new concern about EVs, and it's not what you might immediately think of. It's a concern with the increase in vehicle weight, especially with the larger trucks and SUVs that are now being brought to market. Some, like the Hummer EV, weighing in at more than 4.5 tons. This can be a massive safety concern for other vehicles on the road, but even more so to pedestrians and bicyclists. The drivetrain in the very first EV from Maserati is going to be everything that you'd expect from a performance Italian brand. 3 electric motors built by Marelli, 1 in the back and 2 in the front, will supply the wheels with more than 1,200 horsepower and almost 1,000 pound-feet of torque. No performance figures are available yet, but if the traction can be managed and tuning designed with acceleration in mind, I would guess that this is a car that could be capable of a 0 to 60 time near 2 seconds and quarter mile at just under 10 seconds. Can't wait. Extreme E Season 3 is officially underway, and if you haven't watched any of the high-energy off-road racing yet, you are seriously missing out. The first 2 races of this season took place in the sands of Neom, Saudi Arabia, and saw 2 new teams at the top of the podium. Veloce Racing's new driver lineup, Molly Taylor and Kevin Hansen, grabbed first place in an exciting Race 1, with Laia Sanz and Matthias Ekstrom of Acciona Sainz team in second. The results for the second race saw their podium positions swapped, with Acciona Sainz on top and Veloce in second place. Last year's championship winners, Rosberg X Racing, finished third in both races. The 10 teams in the series have also slightly changed. We don't see the Excite Energy car anymore, but replacing them is a new entry from Carl Cox Motorsport. The next Extreme E round will take place in Scotland, May 13th and 14th. Hello, friends. It's Zach here, but I'm sure you already knew that. I wanted to interrupt this episode very quickly to ask for your support. Not for me directly, although that is an option through Patreon, but instead to support the many companies that I have aligned with that have agreed to support my efforts with EV Resource. Instead of charging mandatory fees or having content behind paywalls, EV Resource is financially supported through our affiliate and advertising connections. You can find a full list of these amazing organizations and many coupons and deals on the EV Resource webpage under the sponsors section, or go directly to ev-resource.com/deals. Additionally, we have a shop section where I've chosen to highlight a bunch of products I've found on Amazon. From the best charging equipment and must-have accessories to a diverse range of toys and books, I've curated what I believe will bring the most value to you. As an Amazon affiliate, I don't sell these items directly, but when you purchase through the EV Resource shop, instead of on the Amazon webpage, I do get a small credit for the referral. So thank you so much for supporting these ways that make EV Resource possible. Okay, then, shifting to more of the in-depth news to cover this week, starting with what I believe to be one of the most important EVs to be unveiled for the North American market. Kia has unveiled the exterior and interior design of its highly anticipated flagship SUV, the Kia EV9. This will be the first three-row electric SUV from the brand, and while details were focused entirely on interior and exterior design, a digital global premiere is expected later this month where the company will share product details and pricing. The EV9 features a sleek and modern design that is absolutely sure to turn heads. The exterior of the SUV is both bold and boxy, but not ugly boxy, and boasts several distinctive features such as innovative triangular taillights, sleek flush door handles, and geometric aero-style rims. Additionally, the front LED lights feature a tessellated design and create a dynamic, as the company is calling it, digital tiger face, which certainly provides a very unique visual experience. Karim Habib, Executive Vice President and head of Kia's Global Design Center, said, quote, "The Kia EV9 breaks new ground, aiming to redefine standards for design, connectivity, usability, and environmental responsibility. The Kia EV9 offers customers an exceptionally high-quality proposition and a fresh EV perspective in the family SUV sector. This new vehicle typology provides instinctive experiences and excellent comfort for not just the driver, but all occupants through innovative use of space, technology, and design." End quote. The EV9's interior takes inspiration from the concept EV9, which boasted flexible seating configurations. The production model retains some of that functionality, as evidenced by photos showcasing a center row of swiveling seats for its six-seater version. These seats can rotate to face the rear seats for face-to-face interactions or towards the doors for ease of access. With the Rivian R1S, Mercedes EQS SUV, and the Tesla Model X and Y being the only three-row electric SUVs available, all with relatively high starting prices, of course, except the Model Y, the Kia EV9 may offer an affordable alternative. While Kia hasn't officially released pricing yet for the EV9, there was a leak sent to Electrek that showed 5 different trim levels ranging from $56,000 at the base to $73,000 for the top trim. Other information, according to their reporting, shows power ranges from 200 horsepower to 400 horsepower, range from 220 miles to 290 miles, and towing capability of up to 4,500 pounds. It'll be interesting to see if this leaked information is accurate, and if so, this could be one of the best-selling vehicles for Kia in the coming years. There has been lots of talk recently about building more affordable electric vehicles, with, of course, Tesla mentioning their next generation platform, the $25,000 car. Of course, they've been talking about that for a couple years now. But the race to build the best affordable EV is definitely heating up. And now, with the unveiling of the ID.2 concept vehicle, Volkswagen is positioning themselves to absolutely dominate this space in Europe. When it comes to market in 2025, Volkswagen says it will sell for under 25,000 euros. Volkswagen says the ID.2 is, quote, spacious like a Golf, affordable like a Polo, end quote. And if it holds to that price point, it should be their best-selling EV ever. According to reports, the concept design for the ID.2 was developed in just 8 weeks after Volkswagen appointed a new design boss who was not fond of the original ID Life concept from 2021. With the ID.2, Volkswagen's design team aimed to create a car that has a more traditional appearance, one that, if you ask me, looks like a Golf or like a bigger Polo. I mean, it's interesting, but it looks like their traditional styling of all of their gas-powered cars. And honestly, that's a good thing. Volkswagen aims to make the ID.2 appealing to a very broad audience. And while the design of the car isn't particularly remarkable, it's also unlikely to put off any potential buyers. According to Andreas Mint, head of design at Volkswagen Passenger Cars, he said, quote, "The ID.2 All gives a preview of the new design language of Volkswagen, which is based on the 3 pillars: stability, likability, and excitement," end quote. The ID.2 will be built on the same modular electric drive, or MEB, platform as the ID.3, ID.4, and others. And the ID.2 is distinct in that it will be the first offered with front-wheel drive. Volkswagen says the ID.2 will offer a range of up to 450 kilometers from its battery pack, although the exact battery capacity has not been disclosed yet. This is higher than any variant of the ID.3. The power output of the vehicle is also higher than that of the ID.3, with Volkswagen saying that it will provide 226 horsepower, representing an increase in approximately 10%. Although the exact charging speeds have not been specified, Volkswagen says the battery can be charged from 10 to 80% in approximately 20 minutes. And that would put it in the same league as many of the newest fast-charging electric vehicles available, such as the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai, the EV6 from Kia, and newer Tesla models. Last year, Volkswagen announced that it would be incorporating physical buttons back into their ID vehicles due to customer complaints with the touch controls. The upcoming ID.2 will fully embrace this trend, featuring actual buttons on the steering wheel and additional physical controls on the center console for various functions, including climate control. The company claims that the ID.2 will provide the same interior room for passengers as the Golf, all within the same footprint as the Polo. Although it won't be as spacious as the ID.3, the ID.2 is expected to use its space more efficiently. It will offer a cargo volume of 490 liters, which can be expanded to 1,330 liters by folding down the rear seats. If Volkswagen actually achieves the specifications they've shared about the ID.2 concept, it will be a massive success for the brand. Unfortunately, and you might have caught on to my emphasizing in Europe in the first part of this reporting, there is no talk yet about bringing this to North America. And that is something that is a disappointment for many who have been looking for an affordable EV that isn't a Chevy or a Nissan. Next, some news out of Mississippi, the state that currently ranks at the bottom for its healthcare, its education, economy, infrastructure, and many more metrics. Well, now we can add direct in-person electric vehicle sales to that list. Mississippi's Governor Phil Bryant has signed a new law that bans direct in-person sales of electric cars, requiring instead that all sales go through traditional dealerships. The move means that electric car manufacturers such as Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, and others will no longer be able to sell their vehicles directly to consumers in Mississippi. While the new law was opposed by some Republican lawmakers in the state who called for a veto, it ultimately passed with overwhelming support from both Republican and Democratic legislators. Supporters of the new law argue that it will protect consumers by ensuring that all car sales are subject to the same regulations and consumer protections as traditional dealerships. Under the new law, car makers are allowed to make direct sales, but in 2 ways. First, through online sales, as this doesn't regulate digital storefronts. And second, companies that only own one dealership and have had a dealer's license since August of 2021 and exclusively sell electric vehicles can continue their business unimpeded. This exception seems to apply to only one establishment, the Tesla store in Brandon, Mississippi. Critics of the law, however, argue that it is a protectionist measure designed to prop up traditional dealerships and limit competition, and that it will ultimately harm consumers by limiting their choices and increasing prices. Mississippi is not the only state to have banned direct sales of electric cars. Other states, including Texas and Michigan, have similar laws in place. Electric car manufacturers naturally have fought against these laws in court, arguing that they are unconstitutional and anti-competitive, but so far they have been unsuccessful in overturning them. The debate over direct sales of electric cars is likely to continue as more and more consumers turn to EVs as traditional dealerships seek to protect their market share. As the electric car industry continues to grow, it remains to be seen whether states will continue to ban direct sales or whether they will embrace new models of car sales that offer consumers more choice and more competition. 7-Eleven is jumping into the EV charging game with the launch of a national EV fast charging network named 7Charge. The service is currently operational at various locations in Florida, Texas, Colorado, and California, offering fast charging services to customers through use of their proprietary 7Charge app. The charging stations will be equipped with both CHAdeMO and CCS fast charging connectors and will be noticeably excluding Tesla's NACS connector. As a result, Tesla vehicles will need to use an adapter if they want to utilize the network, but honestly, they may not. Current stations on the app are showing a peak 90 kilowatt capability. That is not a lot at all, especially considering the use case for going to 7-Eleven stores. Typically, you're going to be there for 5 to 10 minutes. According to the company, pricing for the 7Charge network is determined by either energy consumed in kilowatt hours or time spent charging, depending on the regulations in the state where the chargers are located. Some states still will not allow anybody other than electricity providers to officially sell electricity in kilowatt hour units. So therefore, they're forced to charge customers based on time plugged in. Similar to other EV charging networks, customers are requested to move their vehicles after charging is complete and may be subject to additional fees for prolonged use at certain locations. It will be interesting to see how consumers take advantage of this. With most trips to 7-Eleven lasting less than 10 minutes, will customers take longer and wait for their EV to charge more, or will they leave when they're finished in store? The EV charging network operator and charging equipment manufacturer Blink shared in a press release this past week that it has secured an infinite delivery, indefinite quantity agreement with the U.S. Postal Service. This contract permits Blink to provide up to 41,500 EV charging units to assist in the development of EV charging infrastructure for the U.S. Postal Service as part of its vehicle electrification strategy. Michael Farkas, founder and CEO of Blink Charging, said, quote, "We are honored to be selected by the U.S. Postal Service to provide our reliable and advanced EV charging stations and ancillary network services for their growing fleet of electric vehicles, and we applaud their efforts to modernize and make the move towards a sustainable and efficient electric fleet." The Postal Service's recent announcement of purchasing more EVs and building the necessary charging infrastructure is another step in developing a complete transition to going electric. This move towards electrification sets a precedent that we are hopeful all fleet owners will follow, end quote. Blink will provide the USPS with its Series 7 dual-port Level 2 charger, which can deliver up to 80 amps of power at each port. These Level 2 AC chargers are capable of charging two vehicles at the same time using a universal J1772 connector at a max rate of 19.2 kilowatts, which is pretty much the highest rate that you can go without becoming into the DC fast charging capabilities. So this substantial order by the post office marks another positive development for Blink Charging and the Postal Service as they move to electrify as much as 50% of their fleet of vehicles. And while it was certainly inevitable that the U.S. Postal Service would have to choose somebody to provide their chargers, I'm happy that it was Blink because they are one of the top highly rated and highly respected equipment providers in the country. Next, some exciting news for those of us encouraging the adoption of electric vehicles. According to a report from Bloomberg New Energy Finance, they identified 2017 as the year where we saw peak sales of combustion vehicles, meaning that we will never see that many ICE vehicles sold in a single year ever again. During the height of the market in 2017, a total of 86 million ICE vehicles were sold, which includes hybrids such as the Toyota Prius, as they are only gasoline powered. At the time, electric and plug-in hybrid models made up only a small fraction of the market, with a combined total of just over 1 million vehicles sold. However, fast forward to last year, the landscape of the automotive industry looked markedly dissimilar. Sales of ICE vehicles had dropped by almost 20% from their peak to 69 million, while plug-in vehicles had surged to 10.4 million, most of which were full battery electric vehicles. Interestingly enough, even if plug-in hybrid vehicles like the Toyota Prius Prime, RAV4 Prime, and so many others out there, even if those vehicles were added to the ICE category, the overall picture remains largely unchanged. BNEF expects the global combustion fleet to be relatively steady for the next few years before starting to decline in earnest from 2026 onward as the EV fleet swells. Nonetheless, what ultimately counts for oil demand is the replacement of existing vehicles with new ones, and that's why the peak of oil consumption is expected to occur later this decade, around 2027. That projection is significantly earlier than what was anticipated even just a few years ago in 2016, when estimates suggested that the year of peak oil consumption would be 2036. More recently, the IEA, or the International Energy Agency, has also predicted that the global fossil fuel demand will reach its peak within this decade. IEA Executive Director Faith Birol said, quote, "Even with today's policy settings, the energy world is shifting dramatically before our eyes. Government responses around the world promise to make this a historic and definitive turning point towards a cleaner, more affordable, and more secure energy system." And lastly, for the news segment this week, it appears that luxury electric vehicle maker Lucid may have a demand problem. The company said during its fourth quarter earnings report that it had over 28,000 reservations for its Air sedan as of February 21st. That was a surprise given that the company had claimed over 34,000 reservations in November and delivered fewer than 2,000 vehicles in the fourth quarter. Even more surprising, Lucid says it plans to build just 10 to 14,000 vehicles this year, far fewer than the roughly 27,000 that Wall Street analysts had expected, and much less than the 34,000 vehicles per year that Lucid's factory is set up to build. Lucid faced a rough road getting the Air into production. The company spent the first half of last year scrambling to secure key components and untangling logistics snags. Now, with production running more or less smoothly, it seems to be facing a new problem. Not enough of its reservations are actually converting to orders. CEO Peter Rawlinson acknowledged as much during the earnings call when he reminded listeners that reservations aren't binding. He said, quote, "We've solved production. That is not the gating issue here now. My focus is on sales, and here's the thing. We've got what I believe to be the very best product in the world. Too few people are aware of not just the car, but even the company," end quote. More marketing might help, but clearly demand for Lucid's vehicles isn't materializing as quickly as the company expected, which does raise some tough questions. First, how big is Lucid's potential market? And second, how long can Lucid run losing money? Luckily, the good news for Lucid is that Saudi Arabia's public investment fund has put up a lot of money to support the company. Most recently, in December, they invested an additional $915 million into Lucid, and now they own 62% of the company. So as long as Lucid has the Saudis' backing, they should be able to keep going. Now, Lucid does offer one of the most technologically advanced platforms in the world. Their EV powertrain is so small and so efficient, and is currently being used in the Formula E series. So the technology is there. Peter Rawlinson does have a point. They are incredibly technologically advanced, and they build a very, very compelling product. But is that product providing the value that consumers are looking for? And like this article suggested, how big is the market that they're trying to compete in? So I'm going to make this the question of the week this episode. Would Lucid benefit from building a smaller, down-market vehicle at a lower price using the technology they already incorporate into the Lucid Air? So if you want to participate in that, I will have more information about the question of the week, as well as a bunch of other announcements and a call from a listener to include in the EV Resource Hotline segment right after this.
Do you own a business and want to reach EV owners and people interested in electric vehicles? EV Resource is welcoming businesses nationwide, both big and small, to become advertising partners with us across all platforms. The EV Resource podcast, magazine, YouTube videos, social media, and our webpage. For more information, please email Zach at hello@ev-resource.com.
Okay, it is now time for the question of the week. Last week, I asked, do you find vehicles that are designed with an aerodynamics first approach visually appealing, or do you think they look too weird? 80% of the responses said yes, they look cool. Naturally, that leaves 20% that said no. Rajiv Narayan said, quote, more than just the visual appeal, moving to more aerodynamic vehicles just makes sense. Above 50 miles an hour, most power is spent overcoming air resistance. As we move to electric vehicles where batteries remain heavy and expensive for now, making aerodynamics more acceptable can significantly boost range without adding battery capacity. This is especially true in trucks, where the current pickup truck's styling calls for aerodynamics resembling that of a small house. If the Cybertruck becomes a hit, it could make aerodynamics look more acceptable and usher in a whole new era in vehicle styling focused on aero, end quote. And that's a good point, Raj. The Cybertruck with its sloped rear could help influence future design from other manufacturers, or at least we can hope so. Andy Cooper said, quote, this is a fun question. I was trying to think of aerodynamic examples that I do like over conventional and couldn't think of any. The Ioniq 6, Lightyear Zero, and Mercedes-Benz EQXX are nice, but are still a bit too quirky for mainstream, end quote. And you may be right, some of the designs might be ahead of their time, but who knows? If a company like Aptera can get tens of thousands of people interested in something that looks like a spaceship, maybe other companies can see success with less radical but still aero-optimized designs. The first one to come to mind is the Ioniq 6, like you mentioned, and if that sells really well, then I think we have hope for more efficient designs in the future. So thank you everybody for participating and leaving comments. For this week's question of the week, would Lucid Motors benefit from incorporating their incredible powertrain technology into a smaller down-market vehicle that is much less expensive? And for this, I'm thinking like $35,000 to $65,000 range. Maybe an SUV, maybe a smaller sedan, maybe a small pickup truck. So I do have the poll live right now on the EV Resource Patreon site. You can access it by going to patreon.com/EVResource, and Patreon is spelled Patreon. You do not have to be a current Patreon backer in order to vote or comment. This is open to the public. So I encourage you all to go vote and leave your thoughts. On then to the EV Resource Hotline segment. This is your chance to be featured on the podcast. All you have to do is call in and leave me your EV question, comment, or discussion topic. It's super easy to do this. Simply use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your message, and then email that file to me at hello@ev-resource.com. This week, we have a question from David in San Diego, California, about the Kia EV6 battery preconditioning. Take it away, David.
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is David, and I own a 2022 Kia EV6 all-wheel drive with the tech package. I'm wondering if you can shed some light onto the Kia EV6 battery preconditioning. I know it's been released for the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and I know several of my friends who have it. It is not currently available per the dealer and per Kia USA's engineers. I wanted to see if you know any other information or have any contacts, and if you could shed some light on this topic, because it would be greatly appreciated. On top of that, I just heard that the Ioniq 6 has a new software that might be coming out to all three of the eGMP platforms. It is called Journey Planner. You can look into that. I know there's a YouTube video on it from a gentleman in the UK. And thanks. I just found your podcast. I listened to a bunch of other ones, so keep it up and have a good one. Bye.
Well, thanks for calling in, David. I am happy to try to help. I've done a decent amount of digging to try to get you an answer on this, and what I've found out seems to be somewhat inconclusive. While all 2023 model year EV6 came with battery conditioning as a standard feature, earlier models require a software update to unlock this. Kia put out a press release in October of last year outlining all the details, but unfortunately, this is only something that can be done at the dealership, not as an over-the-air update. So it will require coordination with your local store to work this out. It seems like Kia hasn't released any official timeline for the rollout of this software update to be available, and owners that have reached out are getting a canned response that doesn't really shed any light. So unfortunately, I am also giving somewhat of a non-answer. It looks like we just don't know yet. So what I've done, I have sent an email to the product and technology manager at Kia Motors America. So hopefully I will get some information back that is more than what everybody else is hearing right now. As far as the second part of your message regarding the Journey Planner, you can temporarily switch on this feature provided that your car has the standard Gen 5W navigation head unit and version 22.12.23. You need to enter into engineering mode, which I do want to mention is a risk as you can access things that can seriously mess up your car. And then go under the dynamics section, navigation subsection, hit root on the side of the screen, and then scroll all the way to the bottom and select EV recommended POI activation. It does seem to be only a temporary activation though. So if the car has been sitting for longer than 20 minutes and the head unit turns off, then you would likely have to go back in order to turn this feature back on every time you wanted to try it out. So currently, it doesn't look like the feature is quite ready for the EV6 yet. If it were me, I'd probably avoid messing around with it and just wait. It would be nice to see both of these software features working on the EV6 though, but if I'm to be completely honest, I'm not going to ask you to hold your breath. Car companies do things their own way most of the time and on their own timeline. I will keep my ear to the ground though, and if I find out any updates on either of these, I will certainly mention it. Thanks again for calling in, and if anybody else has a question, comment, or topic discussion, I'd love to hear about it. My email inbox is open. Before I end the episode this week, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. Patreon is a platform that allows you to financially support your favorite creators and help them invest in their creations. For EV Resource, I've created 3 preset tier levels starting at only $5 a month, and in return, in addition to getting the same great content that everybody else receives, my Patreon supporters get a wide variety of perks and benefits. I like to think of Patreon as a special EV Resource club where you get to choose your membership level. Some of the perks include ad-free podcast episodes, access to our monthly Zoom water cooler chat, and your name read out here on the podcast. A special thanks to members at the Director tier, Rajiv Narayan and Andy Cooper, and to Christopher Lawrence at the Executive Producer tier. I cannot express my gratitude for you all and all of the members of the EV Resource family enough. Your support makes a difference on tough days like today has been, and it pushes me to keep going. So thank you, truly. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while and feel like I have earned your support, you can get all of the details about the different tiers at patreon.com/EVResource. So that is it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time.